Okay, better share my screen for the video. Okay. So, can you see the data on the screen? Try and make it big. Can you kind of read it? Can you read it from there, Chelsea? Yeah, okay, cool. So I guess what we're going to do is we're going to sort of look at all the different responses we've got, how it's represented in the data, and we're just going to make some conclusions, I guess, from this data. So we'll leave it for the weekend, and what we'll do is next week I'll freeze the data so it won't change. Everyone will be using the same data. I will screenshot it and post it to Daymap so everyone has access to it. And then it will be up to you to individually interpret the data from then on. So we'll just take a look at how you would do that. So the first question that we did was, have you heard of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder before? So 61.4% said yes, and 38.6% said no. So I think that was really interesting. I was watching the data collect each day. We've only had it open for what, 2 days? So pretty good. But I was watching it change, and the no started off really small and actually got bigger. So what do you think about that particular set of data? Surprised, not surprised?
Well, they could just say they know it because
that alcohol word kind of, yeah, they could say they know it or they've heard of it. Well, I guess the question is, have you heard of it? So they might have heard of not drinking during pregnancy, but they might have not necessarily heard of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder before. Okay, so if you were to use this one in your investigation, you could say that we did a survey and 61.4% of people said that they have heard of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, which gives us an indication that some people have an awareness of the effects of drinking alcohol, but perhaps not fully, and 38.6% of people said they didn't. Okay, so when we use the data to talk about how perhaps people aren't educated around FASD, which is why it's so prevalent, which is something that you need to talk about in your investigation, you could say that it is prevalent because 38.6% of people in our survey don't know about it. All right, that's how you could use that one. So the next one was a short response that we asked people to do. So what do you think FASD is? So what I might get both of you to do, Chelsea, maybe we'll do it on the board actually. I'll get my texters out. We'll see if we can collate them, the answers, into different topic headings, if you will. One is FASD is a disorder that can impact the development of the fetus caused by the drinking whilst pregnant. Okay, so one for the drinking whilst pregnant. Drinking too much when pregnant and harming your unborn child, I'm supposed to say. I'm going to make that a different category because what they said is they said drinking too much. Okay, so we know that FASD is caused by drinking any amount of alcohol, even a small amount, okay? And they've sort of said too much, which I just want to make that distinction. So the next one, a disorder caused by heavy consumption of alcohol of the mother during pregnancy. Which side, left or right? Right. I'm going to say heavy, yeah, let's just put heavy and regular. All right, cool. All right, the next one. A physical mental disability. It's probably a different one, isn't it? Different. So we'll label that physical, mental, disability. Okay. If the mother drinks during the pregnancy and the child is affected by it, which one? Regular, heavy, physical, mental? Regular? Yeah, I'd say so. Due to the mother drinking too much, the child has physical and mental difficulties as a result. Heavy? I'd say so. Okay. The result of a mother drinking too much during pregnancy. Okay. Probably. Did I? Physical problems and problems with behaviour, learning that can occur as a result of a mother drinking alcohol whilst pregnant. Regular? And then we did that one. So a range of disabilities, mainly intellectual, physical, behavioural, caused by maternal alcohol consumption. Regular, heavy, or physical, mental. So a range of disabilities caused by maternal alcohol consumption. Yeah. Okay. It is a condition whereby a child's intellectual or cognitive development is impaired. Yeah, I put that in that physical mental disability because they don't really mention alcohol anywhere in that one. The fetus is affected by mum's consumption of alcohol. Which one? Regular, heavy, physical, mental? What are we thinking? Yeah, good. All right. What else we've got? A disorder caused due to mothers drinking during pregnancy, drinking alcohol during pregnancy. Yep. We've probably got 44 responses, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but we can sort of see that there's a little bit of a pattern developing. So you would continue to do that. Just continue to categorize the different responses into, do they discuss alcohol consumption during pregnancy? Do they discuss excessive alcohol consumption during pregnancy? Do they not discuss alcohol? So try to categorize the different answers, and what you'll end up seeing is you might have lots of responses. For example, let's just assume that after we've gone through all 44 responses, heavy alcohol consumption was the biggest one. So we would say majority of the respondents from our survey believe that fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is caused by heavy drinking of alcohol. Then you could say the second most number of participants or respondents in the survey said that it was due to any alcohol consumption during pregnancy. So you could say that perhaps it's still quite prevalent because there is a misconception of a safe amount of alcohol during pregnancy. A lot of people are putting it in that drinking too much alcohol is what causes this, and they're not really aware that drinking any alcohol is what causes this. So that's how you could use that bit of data once you come to analysing all those different questions. All right, and then we've got, what do you think causes FASD? Again, that was a very similar question. So you'll probably find some very similar responses. If you choose to, Jewishness, if you choose to look at these ones, you can. You might even say that some of the respondents have said that, you know, I don't know, that's an interesting response. But bad childhood could be something that you mentioned, that maybe people use alcohol as a coping mechanism. What else have we got? Yeah, alcoholism. We've got yeah, mostly.
Or maybe Jewish people drink like the
potentially. I don't know much about the Jewish faith, so that could be something that you could do a little bit of research into based on that response. Maybe Chelsea, you could do that little, give it a quick research now, see what you find. But you could probably choose either of those to analyse instead of doing both, because you'll probably get very similar results. The next one was where we asked people to identify what characteristics and features you think someone living with FASD would have. So there's a lot of data here. So you could use this data to say that majority of people, respondents in the survey, identified small head size, small height and weight, far set eyes, struggles to regulate behaviour, lower life expectancy, difficulty learning, what's this one? Cannot understand action and consequence, poor memory and slow cognitive processing. So I would recommend that you focus on, if anything, that is around above 20% in terms of respondents or people selecting that one. You could say that that's the majority of the features that people believed they had. And then you could say that a lot of people didn't believe that small lip, no cupid's bow, or a flat nose were characteristics that people have. So you could say that there is some understanding of the general characteristic characteristics and features that FASD poses, but there is still some misconception and people aren't fully aware, aren't fully aware of the actual characteristics. And so if you find that to be relevant in your investigation, then you can use that one. Then we go, what age can a child be at risk of developing FASD? So this is an interesting one where we've got majority of the respondents actually saying prenatal, which we know is correct. And then we've got some people saying any age. That's probably our next biggest one, with 0 to 1. So obviously children can still develop some I guess behavioural problems or cognitive delay from consuming alcohol during, breastfeeding, or if they're a young child, because alcohol can cause those issues. But we are specifically talking about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. How, at what age can that be caused? So we know that's prenatal, which majority of people have gotten right, but then some people have given some bad answers. Someone said 1 to 4. So those respondents, again, showing that they're not particularly as well educated about the disorder as we perhaps would like. Is FASD permanent? Nobody said no, which is kind of good, but a lot of people said yes, which we could say that a lot of people understand the permanent aspect of drinking during pregnancy, but a lot of people have said unsure. I would say 36.4% is quite a large number of people to be unsure. And again, you can use that information and that data to put forth the fact that people aren't as educated about it. They might be misled about the permanent aspects of FASD, etc. Chelsea, did you find it?
It doesn't say anything about drinking, but it said that in the Jewish community, if you're pregnant, you don't actually have to tell anyone until your 5th month.
Okay, interesting. So if you're Jewish and you're pregnant, you don't tell anyone until you're 5 months. Perhaps people encourage you to drink, maybe. That's an interesting answer that I would love to know who said that, out of a joke or maybe out of seriousness. Yeah, because I'm not very well educated about Jewish faith. All right, so what treatment/support do you think is available for people with FASD? So some mixed results here. Most people believe that medication is readily available and probably the most common treatment, but I would say that the most common treatment would probably be behaviour training, all right, teaching children how to concentrate or perhaps how to behave in a socially acceptable way, learning about consequence and action and consequence, and then parental information and so on. So it might be worth doing some actual research about what the treatments and supports are, and then you can compare it with the data about what our respondents believe. Do you know anyone diagnosed with FASD? A lot of people have said no, which I would say would be quite common, but some people say yes. So however you choose to use that data, you can if you want. What percentage of the population do you believe has been diagnosed or is living with FASD? So this is a bit of a, I guess, a guessing question. So we know the answer is 2 to 5%. So we've got almost a quarter of our respondents saying that it is in that area. A lot of people are unsure, all right? And we can relate that back to that a lot of people perhaps don't know what it's about. And then we could say 20%, so that's about a fifth of the respondents say 1 to 3, so they think it's quite rare on the low side, and then a smaller percentage think that it's quite high and it's quite common in our society. So however you choose to use that data. What socioeconomic group and social class do you think is most affected by FASD? So this is really interesting because I think a lot of people do tend to lean on that lower class is affected by FASD. The lower class consumes large amounts of alcohol. The lower class is uneducated. Okay, so a lot of people are still having that really firm, stigmatized belief about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So it's almost 50% of people have said it's the lower class that are most affected. Some people have said middle class, And then a lot of the other respondents have actually said all of the above. So how might you use that bit of information in your investigation? Yeah, a lot of people are making assumptions about the education of the lower class, making assumptions about the morals and the beliefs of people in the lower class. So when you're born, you don't get to choose which class you're in. Sometimes you are born into a lower class or a higher class or a middle class, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have good education, that you're going to have bad morals, that all that sorts of stuff that people generally tie with being lower class. So you could say that people are ignorant, they're naive, they're judging, I guess, in a way. But then we do have some people that are aware that all people in our society are affected, which we know from our research. Why do you think FASD still occurs today? Now, I'm not sure why the data has represented this way. It's kind of irritating. But again, like we did with one of the first questions about what causes FASD, and we sort of collected the answers in different categories. I would like you to do this in a very similar way, which makes it a bit difficult when the data looks like this, but that's all right. So the first one, what is it? Alcohol. See, you can't even read them. Alcohol consumption is a wild. I'm gonna try and figure it out, but I don't think I can. I think it's because 2 people have said unsure. So now the data looks like that, but I'll try and figure that out. But I did have a look at some of the answers. So when we look at this grid above, where we've got people that are putting 45% of people are saying that the lower class is affected by FASD. A lot of these responses actually do talk about selfish parenting, being ignorant, being uneducated. So you can actually use a lot of these direct quotes. If you use one of your or multiple of the respondents' answers, you might want to use quotations or italics them. I do think that maybe we've gotten someone to fill out the survey who perhaps didn't take it seriously because of that response, which is a bit disappointing. How much alcohol is safe during pregnancy? Majority of people have said none, which is good. As much as possible, again, is leading me to believe that somebody is not taking this seriously. And 1 drink a night, you might use that data, but you might just say this data represents that most people have an awareness that no amount of alcohol is safe during pregnancy, which is good. Okay. When is most safe to drink alcohol during pregnancy? Not at all. Majority of our respondents, which is great. After birth, okay, so some people still think that drinking alcohol after birth is fine. It can be fine if you are expressing or using formula and you are being really careful about when you start to breastfeed after you've had drinks, to making sure that the alcohol has actually come out of your system before you start to breastfeed again. So you can do it in a safe way, but you have to be really careful about it. Second trimester or first trimester, again, I can't be sure how accurate those answers are based on some of the silly answers we've seen. So when we close this, I'll probably close the survey once it gets to 50, because I feel like that's a really good amount of people. So we're almost there, and you can I'll snapshot the data and post it to Daymap, and you can start to draw some conclusions. You do not have to use every single graph or response or anything like that. Only use what you think is relevant to your investigation. So a lot of your investigations might be a little bit different. You might choose to focus on a couple of different things. But if we go back to our actual investigation template, some of the things that you need to talk about are identify the issue. This is where you'll present the topic of question, which you've been provided above. So you might use some of the percentage about that we've gotten from our videos, like 2 to 5% of the world's population is affected by FASD, and then you might use something from that graph that says, for example, 30% of respondents from our survey aren't aware of FASD. I don't know, you might use something like that. So you can actually use the data in your introduction. What causes FASD? What are the immediate symptoms? So you would use a lot of your actual research for your first paragraph, where you are talking about the long-term health and long-term implications. In the second paragraph is probably where you're going to use most of your data from the survey if you choose to use that. So why is it a modern medical issue? So you might talk about how people are still very uneducated, they're not aware of FASD. What contributes to this prevalence? Again, talking about that data, you might say a lot of people believe that Australia's binge drinking or drinking in excess or being an alcoholic are particular reasons why a lot of children are still being born with FASD. Lack of education, and you might look at a lot of respondents still believe that the lower classes being more high risk of having children born with FASD, and you could talk about that that's actually not. I mean, there is some truth to that, but you still might then want to prompt that most if not all areas of our society are affected by FASD. So fitting in information where you feel like it's necessary. I would maybe expect you to reference the survey three to 5 times. You can do less, you can do more, but I feel like if you reference the data 3 to 5 times, it might be really interesting, more interesting that way. You get that deeper critical analysis, and if you choose to use any of the information perhaps in your conclusion as well, that's fine. When it comes to putting your data in there in your investigation, you would actually be including the screenshot of the actual grid, just to help you sort of save words. So you don't want to be just putting 86% in and all of the other percents as well. It's good to sort of have that already visually represented. And then you might include your entire survey as your appendix. Okay, so
is this the only primary resource we need?
Yep, it's the only one. If you choose to do more, that's up to you, but this is the only one.
What's the topic sentence?
Oh yeah, it's not in there. It'll be on the task sheet. Let's have a quick look. It is this one. What is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder? What are the health and learning implications for a child, and how can it be prevented? So a lot of the data that we've collected would be that prevented in that second paragraph. A lot of the first paragraph is going to be, I've got to change this to capitals, where you're looking at actual health and learning implications. That's mostly going to come from your websites and stuff like that, your proper government websites or national websites, whatever it is. That's where you're going to get most of that information, but you can still use the data, talk about how there is a lot of misconception around the different symptoms of FASD. It makes it very difficult to diagnose because not a lot of people know what the main characteristics are. Not a lot of people, a lot of the respondents in our survey were unsure that the disorder is actually permanent. If people perhaps knew more that it was permanent, then maybe they would think twice before consuming alcohol if they know they're pregnant, or perhaps if they are not taking their contraception safely or not being safe, then maybe they should be thinking a little bit more about how much they drink or just be more safe. But yes, does that sort of help? Yeah, okay, cool. Well, I'll wait till this clicks to 50. I'll freeze it and then I'll give everybody the data. I'll email you once the data is up on DAMA, and then that is up to you to, I guess, analyse and discuss. And then, yeah, Your drafts are due term 2, week 1 on the Wednesday. And then I'll hopefully get them back to you by the Friday, and then they'll be due the following week, and then we'll start our next assessment. So I don't even remember what our next assessment is.